The Brazilians sink to their knees. The only word you can think of is total disbelief, right?
For 24 years, 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, and 2022, the story has felt painfully familiar for Brazil. Different generations, different superstars, different expectations, yet somehow, the same ending. A nation blessed with an endless galaxy of football talent kept finding itself eliminated by teams that were simply more organized, more disciplined, and more prepared. Then came 2026. The man hired to finally end that cycle did something stranger than anyone expected. His first move wasn't to hype up Brazil's stars. It wasn't to promise attacking football, samba flair, or a return to the glory days. Instead, he issued a warning. He warned Brazil against relying on individual brilliance. To understand why, you first have to understand who Carlo Ancelotti is. Ancelotti is the first foreign manager in more than a century to be appointed as Brazil's full-time head coach. Not long ago, that decision would have been considered unthinkable, almost heresy in a country that views football as part of its national identity. But Brazil didn't hire him because he was different. They hired him because of what he spent his entire career doing to teams exactly like Brazil. Before a friendly match against Panama, reporters asked Ancelotti about Brazil's newest superstar. Was he the next Pelé? The next Ronaldo? Ancelotti refused to play that game. Brazil doesn't have a Pelé, he said. Brazil doesn't have a Ronaldo. What we can have is shared responsibility. Then he explained his philosophy. The senior players carry more responsibility. The younger players carry less. The pressure is divided among the group until it becomes manageable for everyone. Coming from most coaches, that might sound modest. Coming from Carlo Ancelotti, it's a blueprint. Because his entire career has been built on one simple belief: individual quality alone is never enough. And he has earned the right to say it. 5 UEFA Champions League titles, more than any manager in football history. League championships in England, Italy, Spain, France, and Germany. 15 major trophies during his time at Real Madrid. But the trophies themselves aren't the most fascinating part. It's how he won them. His greatest teams were rarely the most beautiful. They weren't always the most entertaining. They were the most balanced. They defended together. They suffered together. They absorbed pressure together. And then, when the moment arrived, they punished opponents with ruthless efficiency. Those legendary Real Madrid comeback nights that seemed like miracles weren't miracles at all. They were structure. And structure is exactly what Brazil has been missing for an entire generation. That's the quiet irony now sitting on Brazil's bench. The coach hired to bring joy back to Brazilian football spent the last 20 years building the very machines that repeatedly ended Brazil's dreams. He's stood on the opposite touchline. He's watched Brazil's weaknesses from the outside. In many ways, he knows better than anyone how Brazil gets eliminated, because he used to be part of the teams doing the eliminating. That's why his instinct isn't to create another. And Carlo Ancelotti has what every coach dreams of having: beautiful problems to solve. On one wing stands Vinícius Jr, a player Ancelotti knows better than anyone. At Real Madrid, Vinícius has been a phenomenon. Across the last 5 seasons, he's been involved in roughly 180 goals in just over 250 matches. He's a Ballon d'Or runner-up, a Champions League winner, and one of the most feared attackers in world football. Yet for Brazil, the numbers tell a different story. Despite nearly 50 international appearances, Vinícius has produced only a modest return of goals and assists compared to his club form. The talent has never been in doubt. The question has always been how to unlock that talent consistently in the yellow shirt. His goal against Paraguay secured Brazil's qualification, proving he can deliver when needed. But Brazil isn't looking for occasional brilliance. They're looking for tournament-defining performances. On the opposite flank is Raphinha. It's one of football's most fascinating partnerships. A Real Madrid superstar on one side, a Barcelona star on the other. 2 players representing the fiercest rivalry in club football, now united for a common cause. Raphinha arrives with 11 international goals and has quietly become one of Brazil's most reliable performers. In fact, despite being 4 years older and having fewer caps than Vinícius, he has contributed more goals for the national team. He finished as Brazil's top scorer during qualification with 5 goals. Ancelotti recently described him as one of the world's best players at attacking depth, and it wasn't empty praise. Between Vinícius and Raphinha, Brazil possesses 2 of the most dangerous wingers on the planet. Yet together, they still haven't consistently reproduced the devastating numbers they generate for their clubs. Which raises the biggest question facing this team. Are they here to be brilliant, or are they here to win? Because Brazil's recent history suggests those 2 things aren't always the same. Then there's Neymar. Brazil's all-time leading scorer with 79 international goals hasn't played for the national team since October 2023. Injuries have turned his comeback into a race against time. A calf strain forced him to watch Brazil's 6-2 victory over Panama from the stands while younger players stepped into the spotlight. Even so, Ancelotti kept him in the squad. When asked whether he would have selected Neymar had he known the full extent of the injury, the Italian smiled and delivered a classic response. "If my grandfather had wheels, he'd be a car." In other words, World Cups aren't won by debating hypotheticals. They're won by making decisions and trusting them. And that's exactly what Ancelotti has done. Several key players, including Rodrigo, Eder Militao, and rising sensation Estevao, have already been ruled out through injury. Meanwhile, João Pedro, Chelsea's player of the season and one of Brazil's most productive forwards, was surprised. Ancelotti has made one thing clear from the moment he arrived. Brazil's attack isn't his biggest concern. The defending is. Since taking charge, he and his staff have spent countless hours working on defensive organization, and they'll continue doing so right up until the final whistle of Brazil's last match in the tournament. Not because he wants to limit creativity, but because he refuses to be naive. He understands where Brazil's vulnerabilities lie. Look at the fullback positions. Alex Sandro is now 35 years old. Danilo, Wesley, and Douglas Santos are experienced professionals, but none of them possess the explosive pace they once had. Against elite opposition, those flanks can become targets. Smart teams will identify that weakness immediately and attack it relentlessly. Ancelotti knows it. So his solution is both simple and uncomfortable. The wingers must defend. Vinícius Jr defends. Raphinha defends. Everyone defends. That phrase Ancelotti keeps repeating, shared responsibility, isn't just a motivational slogan. It's a tactical requirement. It means 2 of the most dangerous attackers in world football sprinting 40 meters backward to protect an exhausted fullback. It means sacrificing individual freedom for collective security. That's the deal. There isn't another one. The blueprint